So there are reports of a possible CNN-CBS News partnership in the works, and I want to get your take on that because CBS Evening News executive producer and former CNN president Rick Kaplan has said that CNN is in free fall. So what would a partnership mean, do you think?
Well, first of all, I think it's possible. When I was at CBS, there were talks from time to time because CBS News does not have a cable outlet. CNN does not have an over-the-airways broadcast outlet. So it's a marriage that makes sense in theory, but there's always the problem. In the end, somebody's got to run it. But they may work that out. And I do think that there would be advantages to each side, to both CBS and CNN. From where I sit, just personal opinion, the greatest advantage would be for CNN. But it raises the possibility, let me underscore the word, Julie, of possibility of such things as Katie Couric, who anchors the CBS Evening News, her contract is up next year, that I could write you a scenario, doesn't mean it's going to happen, where if CNN is looking for a successor to Larry King, they move Katie Couric into that slot. She's a very good interviewer, excellent interviewer, and that CBS holds on to her to maybe do a few things a year for 60 Minutes, special projects, and she also works at CNN. I think it could work, but one doesn't want to underestimate the internal problems of, in the end, who's going to have the final say.
Now, you said earlier, if there is a partnership between CBS and CNN, that CNN has more to gain. There have been many articles and editorials about CNN's demise. If you were in charge of the network, what would you do?
I'd resign because I'm a reporter. I'm not a manager or a businessman.
But what can they do to right their ship?
Well, you know, I believe that if you concentrate on the news, not just broad horizontally, but dig deep, I would turn some of their great resources into investigative reporting, and I don't mean just hours on Sunday night. That's one thing I would do. It's strengthen investigative reporting. Second thing I would do is strengthen their overseas, their international reporting. CNN has tremendous resources, and they do a lot of international reporting. But I don't think they have mastered bringing those resources to point of attack, as I would say in journalism.
Why do you think that is?
Well, for one thing, CNN is a very large outfit. Don't forget that they have CNN International as well as their domestic. It's a very large bureaucracy. But having never worked there, I don't consider myself qualified to say, all why that is. There always is a tendency in news, and sometimes at CNN, as elsewhere, and I include myself in this criticism, there's a belief that to be serious, you have to be dull. And sometimes I think that CNN falls into that trap, which we've all fallen into from time to time. You can make an argument, I'm not necessarily here to make it, but an argument can be made that part of CNN's problem is they aren't interesting enough. That sometimes their version of being interesting is to cover Britney Spears or J-Lo or someone, or the murder case of the week on the West Coast, believing that that will get them a short-term hit in the ratings. It may get them a short-term hit in the ratings, but CNN's brand, they've tried to make their brand, we're the place for serious journalism. If you're going to make that your brand, you're going to make that your slogan, you must deliver on it. And I think the case can be made that too often they don't deliver on it, and that's part of their problem. But let's give them credit. CNN is operating in a tremendously competitive environment. Fox News is good. We may all have our criticisms on the left, right, center, but their graphics are good. The pace of their broadcast is good. They are good broadcasters, and that's one of the reasons that they have succeeded. And CNN perhaps could look at others and say, what are they doing that's interesting that we aren't doing, and try to adapt it for themselves.
But do you think it's because people, perhaps in the evening in particular, want opinion journalism? The idea that MSNBC skews more to the left, Fox obviously more to the right, CNN down the middle. Do you think in this day and age, when there's such an onslaught of media from so many different sources, that people actually want opinion journalism? Even if they don't agree with that opinion, that's what they want to see at night.
Well, I would say that the ratings certainly reflect that. But let's understand, Julie, what's happened with journalism, particularly electronic journalism, in my lifetime and yours, and particularly over the last 5 to 10 years, that the size of the competitive arena has grown tremendously. My television set now gets, I think about 800 channels. And so part of what's led to giving so much opinion on cable, which is a much smaller world than the overall ABC, CBS, NBC world, which includes over-the-air broadcasting, that you have to choose your audience. And there is an audience for opinion, and there is a place in American journalism for opinion. However, I subscribe to the theory, and no one has ever disproved it. In fact, I think it's proven over and over again, that there are serious people out there who want serious news. They don't want us to take ourselves seriously, but they want us to take the news seriously. And nobody has really gone hard after that audience. And I think there is an audience for that. Now, CNN says, quote, we're in the middle. In some ways, they are. But the kind of middle that they have chosen, there was a Texas politician once who said, everybody tells me go middle road. When I look in the middle road, all I see are yellow stripes and dead armadillos, which is another way of saying that you, in politics, you have to pretty much choose what your core constituency is and then build on it. But I fear all this is a little esoteric for the audience. I have great respect for the audience. But with CNN, there's little with CNN that can't be fixed, in my judgment. By thinking out of the box, putting on more interesting programs, if they intend to go opinion, then go opinion. Pick left or right. If they're not going to go opinion, then concentrate on the news, be hard news all the time. We do serious news for serious people. And I think over the long range, the long pull, that they'll prevail with that.
You brought up Larry King earlier, and you've been on the show many times. You co-hosted on occasion. I want to read you a quote from Tom Shales and get your reaction. He said, in fact, CNN higher-ups have hardly been conspicuous in defending and praising King on the record, so as to soften the blow of the current ratings decline. Some see King as, in effect, having been hung out to dry, or even in a professional competitive sense, hung out to die. It's no way to treat Larry. Do you agree?
I do. I agree with that. But keep in mind that not only have I appeared in his program, but I consider myself a friend of Larry. So you may want to take that in consideration. But I think by any objective analysis, that when you are in primetime television particularly, but anywhere in television news, we all need owners and managers who don't back up and don't back down, and who support the, quote, talent. Larry has done a tremendous job for CNN. He's part of their id. He's part of their DNA. They have built a brand around him. And I don't think they've handled this situation well, primarily because they haven't stood up for him when he's come under attack or criticism, which is one of the things that good management does. John Klein, who is also an acquaintance of mine, I would consider him a friend, worked at CBS for a long time, and who runs CNN, I can't believe that he subscribes to what they have not been doing for Larry. I think it must be by people underneath him. But I do agree with what you read, what Tom Shales wrote. And
what is Larry's future, do you think?
Well, I learned a long time ago not to bet against Larry King. And I think it's a little too early to say any eulogy for his professional career. We all get older, but Larry hasn't gotten any slower. I think he's as good today as he's ever been. In his defense, let me point out that the programs leading into Larry on CNN do very poorly. He has extremely poor lead-ins. You put that together with the fact he has the fiercest competition, the toughest competition on television. The 8 to 10 slot on Fox has done extremely well. In terms of rating, it's a behemoth. So Larry can defend himself, but I wouldn't count Larry out too soon. I certainly could write you a scenario. I'm not predicting this would happen. I don't know this is going to happen. I have no inside information, but I could write you a scenario that if CNN and CBS News do work out an arrangement between themselves, that the plan eventually might be to take Katie Couric, who now does the evening news on CBS, say to Katie Couric, you continue work at CBS, do a few 60 Minutes pieces every year, maybe more than a few, and come into Larry King's slot when Larry is ready to leave. But if I were CNN, they'll laugh because they say, well, you're not, you never have been, and that's true. I'd be very careful about how I handled a brand such as Larry King. I wouldn't be too quick to move him out of there, because let's face it for what it is. The problem is CNN as a whole. It isn't Larry King and just Larry King.
Can anyone really replace Larry King?
No. Someone could succeed him, but no one could replace him.
Now, you talked about Fox News earlier. They recently reported their highest quarterly profits in history. And obviously the network's highest-rated show, Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, most controversial, Glenn Beck. Do you think that if ratings and profits are really a true measure of success, what is it then that Fox is doing correct?
Well, obviously they're doing a lot correct. as I say, you can like them or not like them, and a lot of people don't like them, and a lot of people do like them. But you are what your record is, and particularly in television, a good part of your record is the ratings and the profits that they generate. And they do a very good job. They have chosen to be on the right politically, despite their denials. They're clearly that way. They do have a pretty good domestic news operation. I don't think their foreign news operation it wouldn't be ideal for me. But part of what they do is make it interesting. They're good television people. They know how their programs look interesting, they sound interesting, and they found a core constituency, and give them credit. Even if you don't like them, give them credit for that.